Well, now next I'd like to turn to Steve Sherrill for Steve's What Do You Want to Talk About? So welcome, Steve. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I had my segment all prepared until we started tonight. So what I want to talk about is I want to talk about you, Jim Kello, Master Model Railroad, and your efforts to live a dream that you had to put a show on to share modeling with other model railroaders. I've only been associated with this for about 18 months. And as I stated before the show started, when the O Scale magazine came out today, and I didn't get to see the magazine and your article, it kind of affected me. Things don't usually do that. But I just think that we owe you a big thank you. And I don't know how, other than our participation in supporting this show, is our only way of, I believe, showing it to you that we really care. And I just want to thank you very much for letting me be a small part of it. I've enjoyed, being on the show and the opportunity to share what modeling I've had over the 70 years I've been doing it. Met some modelers. And again, I just want to thank you. And I think everybody who's tuned in today ought to have something to say about, exactly what you've done for us. And so, again, you're a real gentleman, and I just want to thank you again.
Well, that's awfully nice of you. I didn't know you were going to do this. I do appreciate it. Sometimes I wonder, if it's worth it, whether anybody really cares. I probably spend, and I'm not trying to blow my horn here, I probably spend 10 hours a day, either on the articles or on this show or on my own modeling. And that's my life right now. That's what I enjoy doing. I do feel an obligation to try to give back to our hobby. I am extremely worried that the people who have modeling capabilities and skills aren't being asked enough to pass that knowledge and skill on to the next generation. I am concerned that the next generation is not building models. I think that we could easily lose some of what, in my mind, makes this hobby so wonderful. At the same time, I read something today that says that I'm living in the past, in effect. And the past is nothing more than my memories. Well, I guess what I've been trying to do this last 6 years is really try to pass my memories of a wonderful time in my hobby on to the next generation so that they can have an opportunity to create their own future memories. That, to me, is what mentoring is all about. That's the best that we can do. That's really all that we have to offer. If nobody cares about our memories, if no one cares about where this hobby has come from, what it used to be in the 30s and the 40s, 1930, 1940. In 20 years, that people may not be around that remember what it was back then to be a model railroader. What was it like in the 1950s to wake up Christmas morning and find that new Lionel under the Christmas tree? What was that emotion? With your dad sitting on the floor with you while you learned how to run that Lionel train around that circular track, where that new transformer you never imagined you'd ever have, all of a sudden Santa gave you, or that new accessory that Lionel came out with that you had to have, all of a sudden, that was one of your Christmas presents. And who remembers using the cardboard that used to come in your dad's shirts when he got them back from the cleaners? Because frankly, that was the only building material that your mom and dad didn't care what you did with it. So you could cut that up and that could become your next building because it was available to you. And you enjoyed building with it. You didn't know it was scratch building. To you, it was what Frank Ellison was building for his model railroad at the time. And back in those days, Frank Ellison was the father of model railroading. And building in cardstock, building in paper, watching him run that brand new Lionel train around his layout. That's what I envied. I wanted to do that. That was the hobby that I wanted.
Well, you got some influence on me. Now I'm starting to watch more and more streetcar and trolleys.
Well, yeah, it's so funny. You stop and think about it. The only reason that I got involved in trolley modeling is because the person that I wanted to teach me how to build in brass was a trolley modeler. Mm-hmm. And if I wanted to learn how to build in brass, I had to learn to build what he wanted to build, and that was a trolley. So he'd say, let's build this trolley. And so we build the same trolley together, and then we pick each other trolleys apart best we could. That's how I learned to build in brass.
I saw on YouTube the other day, Jim, where a guy he'd scratch built 5,000 trolley cars.
Jeez.
And he showed them, he just lay out 5,000. I mean, it's that's just unbelievable that anybody could build that many models scratch built, and he started in the 30s doing it. Yeah. And he carried it on. But everything was just as it should be, all scale, So, of course, I rode trolleys when I was young. So I had a little bit of love for them. But, I'm like you, we're almost the same age. When you relate to what you did in the beginning, I was so proud when I got that first reverse loop wired, I didn't know what to do with myself. But in order to throw the switch, I had to use I can't remember what the name of it is right now. A wire switch. You threw it just like, you just did things. I mean, I ran a track on a piece of lath. I didn't have a board type of thing. I had a friend in Florida, and his parents took me down to Florida on a trip, and I packed my train in that suitcase. That was one thing I was hauling with me, was down there, and we hooked, set it up under his bed, and we played trains. I mean, that was just a way of life, But I've been around a lot of great modelers my whole life, and they were all good people too. And I just, want to thank you for what you've done for model railroading.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate it. Well, listen, while we're just reminiscing here, anybody else got any comments that they want to reminisce about? Come on, guys. I know you've got some memories out there.
Well, one of the things I'd like to say, Jim, since I've been on the program, is I've totally changed the way I build models now.
That's scary.
what I have learned on new tracks has helped me so much that I now do things and finish my models differently than I have probably in the last 25 years. I just learned from so many people that have been on the show, all different techniques, and I'm now putting those techniques into what I model. So it's been, for me, it's been a very educational journey.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm glad you enjoy it. Anybody else? What do you want to see on the show? We're going to be starting 2024 soon. What do you want to see? What do you want to talk about?
I'd like to see some of the original models that people made. I've got a few that are on the shelf that from the 1970s that I could share, that I put up. They were HO. Some of them were modified HO to HON3. I mean, I've been all through all the scales, you know, in scale too. But it's just, I'd love to see them. If you ask some of the old greats, you got one of the first models you ever built, you know what they'll say? Oh no, I threw that away. That wasn't good enough. You can't look back at your old mistakes, you know, and laugh. I think there's a lot of humor in modeling. When you make a mistake, laugh about it. Go on, you know. Don't be discouraged. You know, we got Ethan, who is the future. I mean, he's there. He's going to be a leader. You know, I believe he's certainly going to a great school. He's very intelligent. You know, so he's participating right now in the NMRA. So there's a guy we can look to the future. I'm sure we're going to see his articles in some of the national magazines. And
well, you know, when you got the president of the NMRA and the president of the local in-scale club that he belongs to in Baltimore, both willing to be able to be recommending him for the scholarship and willing to come on the show and to talk about him the way that they did. Gordon couldn't be here because of the situation, but I do know that he wanted to be. That says something about the quality of the person that we're bringing along in the hobby. And I think we got an obligation as model railroaders to help these young people. That's the reason for our scholarships. That's what that's all about. It's expensive as it can be to go to college these days. I mean, you hear about the student loan situation all the time. Well, we're model railroaders, and if we want the young people to be model railroaders, to me, one of the ways that we can encourage that is to offer them a scholarship if they're going to continue their education in one of the STEAM programs. The same reason that I agreed to be the ambassador for the Professional Association of Model Makers. Because if they want to, there's a career path for model builders. And model railroaders, they agree, I think, gain the skills and the ability to become professional model makers if that's what they want to do. So you become a young model maker, a young model railroader, and you've got a possible career path. You got a possible scholarship to help you with your education. I think that's two reasons to get involved in model railroading as a young person. And I think we ought to encourage it.
well, I always try to encourage it. I think that the more we talk to the young people about it and we show our enthusiasm and excitement, it kind of transfers over to them. Now they're into a more computerized world now where we're, you know, still cranking the front end of a Model T. But I just think that the more that we can share what we know, I mean, these people don't know everything. You know, they may think they do, but if we just show them one or two things that is going to help them, you know, I think that is going to be a big influence on them.
Steve, I think what you and Jim are talking about, one of the best things that this show ever did was have its shows copied onto YouTube, because I know from my son and some of my friends' grandchildren that YouTube is big still among all the different generations. A lot of the other applications, they're for old people or young people, but YouTube catches everyone. And having all of your shows, all of the mentoring, all of the build-alongs, everything that's done on YouTube is just putting it out there for everyone to see, including young people. And I think that was one of the best decisions you ever made.
Yes, I do too. I do too. And you don't have to, you can refer back to these shows 6 months from now, you know?
Yeah, or maybe 6 years from now. Who knows how long this legacy will go on?
That's right.
As long as YouTube has servers, they'll be there.
I mean, you can look up Jim Kello and this show is going to come up all the time, so I just,
Yeah, but let's be realistic here, guys. This is not Jim Keller. This is the people that are doing the presentations on the shows. I don't come on this show every week and say, let me show you what I've built. Let me show you my model railroad. What comes on this show every week is 4 to 6 to 7 different people talking about, in effect, different subjects. And it's a way to try to expose the modeling community both to different kinds of hobbies that have skills that maybe no one has looked at before. Look at the skills that the military modelers have when they do their camouflage painting and some of the shading that they do on their figures. I mean, it's compared to what most model railroaders do. I mean, we're not even in contention with them. I mean, I look at some of their models and just wonder how in the world do they create that? So we got a lot to learn from other hobbies. But in the past, my experience has been model railroaders are model railroaders, and we don't ask any other hobby for help. It used to be that if you were a HO scale modeler, an O scale modeler had nothing to offer you. If you were an S scale modeler, an O scale modeler had nothing to offer to you because they didn't model in your scale, and this is how things were done in your scale. Well, I've modeled in a lot of different scales. I think the skills that we have are transferable. I don't think it makes a hoot holler whether you're an N scaler, HO, O scale, S. I don't think that makes any difference. If you can build a model, you can build a model. Scale doesn't make it, gauge doesn't make any difference. I don't care if you want to run a 3-rail Lionel engine in cars. If you've got scale scenery and you scratch built the buildings on your layout, you're a modeler in my book. And I've seen some absolutely gorgeous 3-rail layouts.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on that. I mean, I see them all the time on YouTube. Of course, that third rail jumps out at you,
Well, it does, but at the same time, look at it this way. One of the things that we've tried to do from day one is promote the small manufacturer.
Mhm.
And try to give them every capability in the world. I don't ask for kits from them. There's no cost to them. The only cost of them being on the show is to give a discount to the viewers that want to buy their product and build it with the modeler on the show. So the manufacturer has to give the builder a modeler, so the builder doesn't have to buy it to build it. And he gives a discount to the people that want to buy his models and build it on the show with the person that's building it on the show. But I'm not asking him to kick in money or to pay us for the privilege of being on the show. What we're trying to do is promote his products and him. Well, that's all well and good, but that manufacturer needs to have a product that the modelers can build. And I have frankly had, and I'm not going to name names, but I have had builders get the model from the manufacturer and send me an email saying, these instructions are ridiculous. And so my response is, well, tell the manufacturer, don't tell me, because I'm not going to do anything about that. That's not my problem. I assume the manufacturer can write the instructions and produce a product that represents him and that he's proud of. And that he wants to participate on our show. And if he's a small manufacturer in model railroading, I want to give him that opportunity. And he can either build his own product, or I'll do everything I can to find a modeler to build his product for him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if his product is no good, it's going to be pretty obvious, because the modeler on the show, my philosophy, you build it like you get the kit. We don't play games with this. If it's a hard to build kit, tell us why it's such a hard to build kit. You've heard modelers on the show say, I'm really having trouble doing this or that or whatever. Well, then there's something wrong here. There's something maybe the manufacturer can figure out a way in the future to make his kit easier to build. Because also I get comments from modelers who say, well, I'll never buy another kit from him. Or I threw the kit away because I just gave up. Well, who is that helping? It's not helping the modeler who gave up, because he's not going to build anything more. He's certainly not going to buy from that manufacturer anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He's certainly not going to say anything good about that manufacturer to his friends. So, what's the benefit here? So that to me is a problem that I recognize exists in our hobby. And my solution was to write the article, not to criticize the manufacturer on the show, but to write the article saying, hey, here's a problem, guys, that we need to look at.
Well, I think sometimes we don't read the instructions. We start reading and then we see the picture. And we go to the picture, skipping a couple of steps between the written information and the picture. And then all of a sudden you glued some things together and you got, oh my gosh, I misread or didn't read. And now you've got a problem taking it apart again to build it the right way. And so you get discouraged. If you have the funds to make a mistake where it doesn't hurt you, you just put it aside.
Yeah.
Maybe you buy another kit and do it right. Or maybe you just say, I'm not going to ever fool with that thing again. I mean, I started a kit, took me 10 years to build once. and when I finished, it looked better than the guy who had designed it. I mean, in my opinion, because you couldn't even recognize it was his kit. So, but it took me 10 years. I just, set it aside until I decided how I wanted to build it.
Yep.
But one other problem that I have on my particular railroad is everything is finished. The buildings are finished. Now, good kits come out. This is a pre-laser. And now you say, oh my gosh, do I take this scene off and start over again? And you just hate to do it. I mean, I did that once and I sat a year looking at that empty space and I was really upset. Wish I could never done it, still do, but I did it. And this is part of model railroading. I mean, you make mistakes and you go on. I mean,
it's called trying. The key to modeling is you got to try.
Yeah, well,
I think one of the best things about making mistakes is it challenges you to find a way to either correct it or hide it.
Yep.
And in doing so, you probably learn 2 or 3 new skills. I know I have a lot of things that I hid, and I found out, another process in doing that I could then use on other things where I wasn't trying to hide something. It just became another tool in my toolbox.
yeah. The back of that building looks almost as good as the front.
Well, but a lot of modelers, they think I've got to be a perfectionist. It's got to be perfect or people will laugh at me. Well, I've never built a perfect anything. I've built something that I enjoy, that I think is pretty good, that I think is finished, and that I stopped building it. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but it looks awfully good.
Well, we are our own critics. We're our worst critics. We spot every mistake, every place we, smudge the paint. We know where it is, and nobody else ever notices it. We almost have to point it out to them, But there's a lot of fun in model railroading, really. I mean, I've had many years. I could sit here and tell you stories about when in 1952 when I was in Cub Scouts. My Cub Scout leader was a model railroader, a well-known model railroader who used to do 16 millimeter and 8 millimeter films of trains, and he would be acknowledged even today if you saw him. His name is in there, and his son is one of the premier O-scale modelers in the country. You know, and so that's what I saw when I saw him. You know, and of course,
Steve, I think the subject we're getting onto is the fact that there's a lot of us here that have models in a layout or in a train layout that we have not seen that would probably be great to see on new tracks maybe once in a while. And if some of us would send in short videos like I did once on their layout that represents what they're doing and what they're proud of, it would be a great thing to show off at every one of these shows. Just a little bit of it. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out layout display of on a video, but short ones. And it leaves you with a question: how did he do that? Like the trestle behind me, I scratch built. But you know, they see that, they say, "Gee, I wonder how he did all those bends on that trestle." Well, that'll give me a reason to show it later on. But that's how you attract people to a show, is when you show them stuff that you've done, like they're doing on my build. I'm not taking away from my build, but I'm saying on a layout. A lot of us here have some kind of a layout or a module that we're proud of or show off once in a while. But I have not seen much of that on this show, and we should do that maybe once in a while. That's my opinion, anyway, for what it counts.
I totally agree. I think that would be great. I wish we could get something like that every show. You know, we've got time. We can schedule these in.
Only takes a few minutes.
Right. Yeah. You see, right now, our shows are running roughly 2 hours a time.
Yeah.
And we're pretty well booked through December of this year already. Well, we can change around some of that, you know, if we want to, and if people say, you know, I'd really like to see this kind of thing, that's fine. That's the kind of input that we need at this point. We're getting ready to go into a brand new year. This will be our 5th year of doing these shows, if you can believe that.
Wow.
Think of the man hours that has gone into 5 years of putting on these shows at least once a week. And keep in mind, part of that time we did train shows, and the train shows were lasting 4 hours a time. And I think we did 4 different train shows and had to give up because we couldn't find the volunteers to run the shows. Well, we were doing those shows. I think the last one we had over 1,000 viewers watching that show. Well, you know, it's hard these days to get 1,000 people to go to a trade show. Well, we were getting 1,000 people watching a Zoom train show where each manufacturer was given 5 minutes to talk about his product and show his product.
Yep. And we can see that on a lot of people's layouts. We all have something on that layout that represents a manufacturer.
Take a picture and send it in. You can be number one, and we'll go from there. You too, Steve. You've got a beautiful layout. You send in some pictures of it. You know, and
what if the caboose feature was people sending in videos of their layout?
Yeah, that's right.
We asked them to do that months ago, and
we didn't get anybody.
And we got zilch from that.
Yeah.
I did one.
That's right, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'd love to see that happen.
I'll do one.
Good.
All we got to do is have people want to send in short video, and these don't have to be hour videos because this is not a video show.
And Steve's got a layout.
This is a short videos where the person sending it in can talk through it and explain, this is a trestle. I built this way. It is like this, blah, 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 and talk about it so that people understand what they're seeing. It's kind of like, here's a photo of X. Well, what does X look like? You know, how did you build X?
If you have a train running over it, they'll really look at it.
Particularly if it falls off the trestle.
Train wreck.
My problem is I don't have the skill to take that video, you know.
You just need a camera that takes videos, or you can use your iPhone, or you could use your
iPad.
I've done that. I've
Use your,
done
use,
that.
use your cell phone and send it to Pat. Pat is the expert.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
not an expert, don't believe me. I got Gary doing it now, but I told him I had one ready for tonight.
But I'm serious. All it takes is your cell
Yeah,
phone.
just a short one.
Yeah,
If you
I
can't
mean-
do it, give it to somebody to do it for you.
yeah. Therefore, you can be in it, you know.
That's
All you
right.
gotta do- You don't even have to shave, Steve. You know, you can just be
Yeah, exactly.
bearded.
Put on your dirty old hat and look coveralls and be part of the thing.
Mm.
All right, guys, enough of this.
All
tonight.
right.
Listen, we're running into our 2-hour time frame here. So Pat, how about running our caboose for us?
I'll get it up here.